I will tell you who the top 5 newcomer quarterbacks are going to be this year in the Big Ten. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today, we're going to take a look at the best new quarterbacks in the Big Ten. There's a bunch of them. Plus, 9 staff members have now bolted from Michigan to Los Angeles to follow Jim Harbaugh. You concerned? Plus, we have our power rankings. Good list here this week as well. Look, I think it's early to determine the best quarterback in the Big Ten right now. I think that's a big open book question right now. There's no definitive front runner at this time, in my opinion. But there are a lot of newcomers, a lot of new blood coming in via recruiting, transfer portal, expansion of the league. So let's take a look at some of the top newcomer signal callers this year in the Big Ten. And by the way, a footnote, every one of them has high expectations on their shoulders. A couple of them have intriguing backups in case it doesn't work out. So I'm going to look at Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Dylan Raiola, Miller Moss, and Aiden Childs, and see what you think about this. No particular order, just going to talk about the 5 of them and a couple of their backups as well. The highest expectations going into this season are Oregon's Dylan Gabriel and Ohio State's Will Howard. Both are expected to win the Big Ten for their schools. Both possibly could win a national championship this year. Let's start with Dylan Gabriel as Oregon begins its tenure in the Big Ten. Dylan joins a loaded roster that became even more loaded in the transfer portal, including him from Oklahoma, of course. And it's his turn to take over for the Ducks offense, which was pretty good last year, but they'll be without first-round quarterback Bo Nix, who's now in the NFL. And if it weren't for a couple of field goal games with Washington, it might have been the Ducks playing Michigan for a national championship last year. Also, intriguing backup story there. Dante Moore. Remember, he came to Oregon from UCLA. The Ducks have a very interesting quarterback room. They're solid no matter what happens here. I think a good backup, good starter. Moore is an outstanding athlete. He decided to leave UCLA before he knew Chip Kelly was going to resign and then go take the Ohio State offensive coordinator job. Nevertheless, Oregon seems super solid at the quarterback position. Now, let's talk about Will Howard. He transferred into Ohio State following several years at Kansas State. My main problem with him is he's only a 59% passer throughout his entire career. That's not good enough at any level. Now, his Ohio State roster is absolutely loaded. So his job, if he wins it outright, is going to be just to manage the games and don't screw them up. That's it. And he's a veteran. He's got a lot of experience. Just go in there or run the offense. That's all Ryan Day and Chip Kelly really want out of him. Or maybe he'll get beat out by Devin Brown. Or maybe he'll get beat out at some point this season by Julian Sayin, the 5-star freshman who transferred and flipped from Alabama. Sayin is very interesting. In fact, he's one of 2 5-star freshmen coming in, joining Ohio State this year. Aaron Nolan is the other. It seems to me, from what I've seen, that Sayin has the edge over Nolan because Sayin seemed to get a lot more playing time this spring in spring football. Both of them enrolled early and have been there. Sayin, again, was the Alabama recruit. And after Nick Saban retired, he says, well, I'm not going there. I'm going to look elsewhere. Interestingly enough, of course, he was recruited by then Alabama assistant coach Bill O'Brien. Well, then Bill O'Brien was now at this point was at Ohio State as the offensive coordinator. And so Julian Sayin said, all right, I'll go there. Days later, O'Brien leaves to take the Boston College job. Sayin's already made his move and he's there. So, you know, if nothing else, Bill O'Brien's legacy may be that he recruited the next great superstar at quarterback at Ohio State, even though he was only there for 5 weeks, I think. Now, as we continue to look at this, I think the most hype this year myself included, will be around Nebraska 5-star freshman Dylan Raiola. I am excited to see him play. You all know the story by now, especially if you're a Huskers fan. He is a 5-star. He flipped. He was going to go to Georgia. Flip says, now I'm coming to Nebraska. Everybody in Lincoln is excited about this kid. Looks like he's going to be starting on day one for Matt Rule and the Huskers. And as I watched the spring game for Nebraska this year, he just had the it factor. He passes the eyeball test. I'm sure he'll make big mistakes out there, but he looks the part. And big mistakes because he's young. I mean, they all go through it at some point, but he looks the part. He looks ready to go. At a minimum, the Huskers, they want to win 6 games this year. They want to get to a bowl game, but you heard it here. I think there's more meat on the bone for Nebraska this year. They can win more than 6 games. I really do. I'm not saying they're going to go win the Big Ten, but I think they're going to turn the most heads this year in the Big Ten and maybe in college football as well. I'm expecting a big year out of the Huskers. Another intriguing quarterback to me is Miller Moss at Southern Cal, another new expansion team into the Big Ten. He exploded onto the scene when he stepped up in the Holiday Bowl because former Heisman winner Caleb Williams already opted out to prepare to become the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And so all Moss did was just step in when most of the country hadn't heard much about him. And he threw 6 touchdown passes in the game. And suddenly USC had a succession plan at quarterback. Boom. To the outsiders, it looked like it just dropped in Lincoln Riley's lap. But I think it's an interesting situation there where he looked good in that game. We thought it was like, all right, is Lincoln Riley going to make a decision on one game? Because after that game, he reportedly told Miller Moss, hey, we're not going to bring in an older transfer at quarterback. So I think you're thinking of transferring out. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because he was thinking of leaving. I think he and his family decided he was going to leave after the bowl game. So he stayed. Lincoln Riley told him that. So he would stay. And you think Lincoln Riley's making this decision based on one game? Probably not. Because remember, from the minute they finished up their regular season for a 6-week period, Miller Moss was the quarterback in practice every single day. So I think Lincoln Riley had a hunch at what Miller Moss could be just from practice. Then he steps into the Holiday Bowl as a relative unknown and throws 6 touchdown passes. He says, all right, we're good. We're good here. I've seen all I really need to see. So I'm going to be very intrigued by that as well. And I think it's a great situation for USC, and I'm excited that they're going to be in the Big Ten this year. So the other quarterback I think you need to keep an eye on, this is the 5th one that I'm talking about here, Aiden Childs at Michigan State. He comes from Oregon State, of course. And there was a lot of uncertainty around the Oregon State football program and the Pac-12 and the demise of the Pac-12. And then Jonathan Smith decided, I'm out of here too. He comes in to replace Mel Tucker at East Lansing, the head coach of Michigan State. And I don't think Aiden Childs wanted to hang around at Oregon State to see what was going to happen. He decided the best option for him was to follow Smith to East Lansing. And I think the feeling was mutual there because obviously Jonathan Smith needed a quarterback at Michigan State. All 3 quarterbacks that played significant time last year for Michigan State had portaled out with the coaching change. So far, Childs' teammates seem to like him. I read good things. They say good things about him from spring football, that he's a good leader. He's a good, very talented quarterback. They're very excited to have him. And everything seems to be trending upward off of spring football with Aiden Childs and Michigan State. Now, I'm not sure how long it's going to take for Michigan State to turn things around. I think in some areas we'll see some improvement right away. But this feels like a 2-year rebuild to respectability. We'll see how that goes. So my top 5 newcomers in the Big Ten this year, and this is via the portal, recruits, and expansion. Dylan Gabriel with his backup Dante Moore. Will Howard with his backup Julian Sayin. Dylan Raiola, Miller Moss, and Aiden Childs. Those are the top 5 newcomers at quarterback in the Big Ten this year. And like I said at the top, you want to press me to say who's the best quarterback in the Big Ten right now? I don't know. Is it Drew Aller at Penn State? Not based on what we saw in the second half last year. Luke Altmaier? I don't know. I don't know who the best quarterback is. It's wide open if you want to have that conversation. And all these newcomers coming in, could explode onto the scene. It could be a very, very interesting year in the Big Ten. Can't wait. We're less than 100 days away. If you like what you see or you hear here, subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe right here. Just click it on it. It's free. Just one click. There's no other personal information required, and you're good to go. And we're together every day talking about the Big Ten. And that way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right. We got a lot to cover here. Do you know how many people have followed Jim Harbaugh from the Michigan staff to now the Chargers staff? It's a big number. Another one is gone. We'll take a look at that, some more transfer portal news, and stick around for our power rankings. This is an interesting one here. It has to do with the transfer portal and Big Ten teams compared to other big-time teams nationally. All that is coming up. We're going to take care of all that here in just a second on Locked On Big Ten. Don't go anywhere. I'll tell you about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA, the NHL. We're down to crunch time. NBA Finals. Well, we're kind of, it's right here. Stanley Cup Finals are right around the corner. Baseball season's going on right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, just about anything you can think of. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And coming up tonight, Wednesday night, let's take a look at the NHL, the Stars and the Oilers. Dallas is up 2-1 in this series. I think Dallas wins this game. The number is 5.5 goals. Take the under. These games are getting lower and lower in their scoring. The defense is better. Nerves are on the rise. Less scoring. That's what overall, be a nice system play for you. Major League Baseball. Let's throw this out at you. Phillies and Giants today. It's an earlier game, so jump on it. I got Christopher Sanchez versus Kyle Harrison. Both decent ERAs. The over-under through 5 innings is 4. Take the under through the first 5 innings. You can do that. These are the kinds of things you can do. Check it all out on FanDuel. FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Well, thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you very much for joining us. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and follow, like Locked On Big Ten, wherever you get this podcast. But Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Don't forget our website, talkbig10, 10.com as well. All of our podcasts are there in order or grouped by school or team. You can buy merchandise there. It's all right there at your fingertips. TalkBig10, 10.com. Another member of the Michigan staff is following Jim Harbaugh to Los Angeles to join the Chargers. Christina DeRuyter. She's a pretty large role in the Michigan recruiting department the past 3 years. She's going to join the Chargers as the next director of football logistics. She was in charge of on-campus recruiting and ops and was in charge of official visits anytime a kid came on campus. Her three-year run happens to coincide with the 3 most, successful years in recent history. 3 straight Big Ten championships, 3 straight playoffs, and, of course, a national championship. This brings the number of the Harbaugh poaching to 9. You got her. You got defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, analyst Rick Minter, Steve Klinkscale, grad assistant Dylan Roney, and 4 strength and conditioning coaches, including the best in the business and Ben Herbert. Herbert is the one, in my opinion, that will be the biggest loss of them all for Michigan and the biggest gain out there for the Chargers, followed by Jesse Minter, of course. But don't worry too much, Michigan fans. Sherrone Moore, head coach, not sitting idle with all these defections. He's added 7 recruiting analysts, and a lot of them come from Power 5 schools from all across the country, like Oregon and Clemson, just to name a few. He's working. He's trying to build his own thing over there while keeping the old thing going at the same time. It's a big job. We'll see how he can do. Any transition period can be difficult. But I just saw one composite recruiting ranking that ranked Michigan's class of 2025. I think they only got about 7 players committed right now. It's ranked 41st nationally. It's going to have to get a little better than that. By the way, I just saw the latest line on the Michigan-Ohio State game, which is 6 months away. Vegas says the Buckeyes are -9.5. That's a big margin. Buckeyes 9.5-point favorites. That's pretty big. One thing people enjoy about college football, in addition to betting, college athletics in general as well, it's the traditions, right? Some go back over 100 years. Although, admittedly, there are fewer and fewer of these traditions that are surviving the test of time. Everything's changing so quickly before our very eyes. But new UCLA football coach DeShaun Foster, he loves history. He loves the history of Bruins football. He was the school's leading rusher the last time UCLA was any good, ranked at the top 5. And so he's trying to bring back some of the old things that kind of went by the wayside, actually. He's bringing back former players into the program, had former players at the spring game. He's revived the Bruin Walk, custom that had been forgotten, where friends and family line the players' entryway into the Rose Bowl on game day. Players love that, by the way. The Rose Bowl has had some anemic crowds over the past few years, but Foster remembers playing in a packed Rose Bowl, and that truly was a home field advantage, and he wants to bring that back. So more power to him. Speaking of Southern California, let's stay down there for a moment. USC has added a wide receiver in the portal. San Jose State receiver Charles Ross took a visit to USC just last Friday, apparently decided on the spot. The school made the announcement on Tuesday that he's coming. He's from California. Went to Nevada in 2019, played 8 games there. Then he transferred to San Jose State in 2021, played there for 3 seasons, got another year of eligibility left. He's coming to play for Troy down in Southern California. So congratulations to him on that decision. I've always liked to ask you, if you watch daytime TV, the talking heads at Fox, FS1, ESPN, it can get a little annoying sometimes. They talk over each other. Sometimes you got to turn the volume down. Sometimes you got to turn it off. There aren't a whole lot of people watching that stuff. But if you're one of them, you can make the switch. And we have Locked On Sports Today. This show appears on that channel, Locked On Sports Today, from time to time. It is a free 24/7 streaming sports channel. It's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming and nonsense. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, you know what we do in the middle of the week? We like to take a look at power rankings. So we've taken a look at a few lists that are out there post-spring football, late additions in the transfer portal, like the one we just told you about in Southern Cal. We're going to rank all the teams, top 10 teams in the country. They're not all going to be Big Ten. The top 10 transfer portal teams, the ones that have done the best across the country. We'll tell you where a couple of the Big Ten teams fit in those rankings, according to me, based on some things I've pulled from other lists. We'll have all that. It's coming up here in just 1 minute. Don't go anywhere on Locked On Big Ten. All right, let's do this. Let's do our power rankings for the week. This week, spring football transfer portal moves, late ads, guys working the portal late in the year. Let's figure this out. I'm going to put it on screen. If you're on audio only, I will describe it in detail. We'll go full screen with it, though, and I'm going to have them all up here at once, and we will discuss in an orderly fashion. And I have deemed that the Oregon Ducks, we just talked about them quite a bit, and their quarterback situation a minute ago, they are in good shape. They had a talented team coming back. They've added players in the portal. You got Texas A&M wide receiver Evan Stewart, Derek Harmon from Michigan State. We've talked about that move a lot here on this podcast, Locked On Big Ten. Don't forget, they've also picked up Alabama safety Peyton Woodyard. And, of course, Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore are transfers in. Oregon, nice job. Dan Lanning, I think you are number 1 in the country in this regard. All right, what else we have here? At number 2, we've got Mississippi, Lane Kiffin. Remember, he lost Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State, right? He's got 22 new players coming in. Juice Wells from Southern Cal. I think Lane Kiffin and Mississippi, they are poised to have a big time season. They could go the distance. They're going to go to the playoffs, and they're going to be ranked in the top 5. So they're going to start off good. We'll go pretty well. We'll see how they do. I'm going to put Texas A&M at number 3 for spring transfer portal. 28 transfers. Mike Elko has been very, very busy. Of course, coming over from Duke to take over for Jimbo, who they let go. They paid, $78 million for Jimbo to go away. I wish somebody would hate me enough to pay me $78 million to go away. That'd be cool. Elko has 8 4-star transfers coming in. Alabama corner Des Ricks, Florida linebacker Scooby Williams is coming in to Texas A&M. They make my list at number 3. At number 4, Alabama. Of course, a little Big Ten tie here as well, because Caden Proctor, does this count as a transfer in? He transferred. So those that don't know, and many of you do, Caden Proctor is a kid from Iowa. Great offensive lineman, young kid, freshman year last year, goes to Alabama, right? After a year at Alabama, Nick Saban leaves. He said, "Oh, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go play for Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa Hawkeyes." He was there for a few weeks, goes on spring break, but goes with his old Alabama buddies, comes back from spring break, decides he's going to return to Alabama. So I don't know if this counts as a transfer in. I guess he did technically leave, so this is a transfer in. They also, you don't talk about this a lot, but Alabama's got a great kicker, the Lou Groza Award winner for the best kicker in the country, Graham Nicholson, coming in from the U. That'll come in handy in some close football games. Kalen DeBoer has brought a bunch of players from Washington with him. So I put Alabama at number 4. Number 5, Florida, the Gators, Billy Napier. Some would like to say Billy Napier, this is a pivotal year for him, but I mean, his schedule is brutal. I mean, if they win 6 and get to some lower tier bowl game, congratulations. They got Jason Zandamala, a lineman, a wide receiver from Arizona State. Elijah Badger is coming in. So I got them at number 5. At number 6, I've got the Ohio State Buckeyes. 7 transfers in late. They lost 23 overall. Will Howard among the ones coming in. Quinshon Judkins earlier. And just a loaded roster. They're set. They tweaked it a little here in the spring. They're good to go. They're good. This is a solid roster, offense, defense, top to bottom. Got to see how good Will Howard is going to be, though, right? I just spent several minutes saying, maybe. They might, in all honesty, Ohio State's weakest position may be at quarterback. We'll see how it goes. At number 7, I've got Texas. Alabama wide receiver Isaiah Bond is coming over there. Defensive lineman Neil Norton from Arizona and Jermaine Lowell from Louisville. At number 8, Florida State. Mike Norvell. He is reloading. Might be the best transfer portal job of the ACC. 5 players from Alabama. That's always going to be good. DJ Ugalele coming from Oregon State to be quarterback. Louisville coach Jeff Brom, former Purdue guy, going back to his alma mater at Louisville a couple of years ago, bringing in 26 players, including Miami running back Donald Chaney and wide receiver Corey Brooks from Alabama. And at number 10, I've got Missouri. Eli Drinkowitz, got running back Nate Noel, rushed for 130 yards a game last year. Pretty good. I did put up in here an honorable mention. We can't talk transfer portal without talking about Deion Sanders in Colorado. He did it again. I mean, last year he redid the whole team just in the portal, and most of them were after spring football. It was late. Just slapped the team together. They won 4 games last year with a lot of hype and a lot of attention. 42 more transfers coming in. Half a new team. 12 players bolted, 42 in. He says it's addition by subtraction or something like that. They did get running back Dallin Hayden from Ohio State. Hayden said, this Ohio State running backs room with Judkins and Travion Henderson. So, there's no room for me here, so I'm going to go play for Deion out of Colorado. So there you have it. That's our list, 1 through 10, plus an honorable mention. Football transfer portal moves, how the schools rank, particularly once we put the final touches after spring football on this list. Let me know what you think about it. Love to hear from you. Many ways for you to get a hold of me, of course, at Talk Big 10, number 10 on Twitter or X. Comments on YouTube. Don't forget our website, talkbig10, number 10.com. We'll take your comments there, as well as invite you to watch more Locked On Big Ten podcasts. They're all there right at your fingertips. Check another one out right after this one. And whatever you do, be sure to subscribe before you go. Quick click of the button and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Also, do not forget our friends over at Locked On Sports Today 24/7. Again, our show is over there from time to time as well. All the top sports stories of the day with our local experts at Locked On. As always, loved our visit here again today, and I already can't wait until we get to meet again tomorrow. In the meantime, tell your friends about us, especially if they're Big Ten fans or alum, that we are here every day for you guys talking Big Ten. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll see you next time.